They might not be living the life that you expected or standards that you have seen, but doesn't mean that your standards that you're bringing in as the colonizer are any more just or right than theirs. And I think that often that mentality, that colonizing mentality, which actually just spurns from patriarchy, is so embedded in us that, first of all, we have to question if this really rude thing that's happening is actually happening. When people ask us to remove ourselves from it, part of the narrative is you can get better, or just fight it out, or whatever, as Olivia was saying.
Dr. Delia Grenville, an executive leader, integral coach, and a TEDx speaker with a PhD in industrial and systems engineering, 20 years at Oracle and Intel driving technology change and innovation. She's an award-winning technologist and innovator and a strategic powerhouse. She was honored, actually, as the Woman of Color STEM Technologist of the Year. You have 5 technology patents, and that is phenomenal and truly demonstrates her commitment to groundbreaking change. And today, she's the founder and CEO of Slyn Consulting and Workplace Respect Network. And she focuses on individuals and organizational transformation. She also hosts, and you all should go and listen and subscribe to the To Live List podcast, and champions transformative workplace cultures by directly addressing critical issues like workplace mobbing, bullying, and harassment. And that's how you actually came into my life, through the work of Speak Out, which was amazing. And you're chock full of just phenomenal impact. And we are so excited to have you on the Embracing Only podcast. Welcome.
Oh, I'm so glad that we finally made it here.
Yes!
What our listeners do not know what we have gone through to make this moment happen. But we have a lot of practice dry runs. I feel like, we know each other in ways we could never have. We hadn't tried so hard.
The last time she had a hurricane coming her way. That's what happened last time. And then after that, it was just my neurodivergence at its best. Impossible to commit to an executive function, working with your assistant to try to get this time on our calendar. I was like, let me check the calendars. And then she put something in and I was like, oh no, you put it in the wrong place. So you know what? The time is here. And it's actually, we're recording the day before International Women's Day. We just wrapped up Black History Month as well, but it's every month is Black History Month. So it's irrelevant that February is wrapped up and every month is Women's Month and Day in our space. So I'm really curious. You spent decades in spaces where you've been the only Black woman, the only person of color, the only one questioning the status quo. Was there a moment, a real specific moment early in your career where you realized this was not just going to be a phase, but it's going to be a permanent reality? And how did that shift your approach to leadership?
My fellow hosts, and hopefully we'll put this link in the podcast for the guests. You guys can take a look at this link. So you asked me, how would I know I would be in this situation? Well, I have on my Instagram a picture of me from the 70s. I'm not thinking exactly here. Y'all can figure that out. And I think it was for Teacher Appreciation Day that I remember too. But you can see that in my class, I am the only person who looks like me in grade 1. So how would I know? It's all I knew, right? My parents are immigrants. They moved from South America, Guyana to be specific. The only English-speaking Caucasus with a Caribbean country. And they came as part of the British Commonwealth at that time. So Canada was letting in Commonwealth people, and they had an abundance of jobs, so they came to have a better life. But what me and my sisters argued with them all the time was, yeah, but now we stick out like a sore thumb. Like, the better life thing, maybe that was for you, but wouldn't it be nice to go to school and have people describe you by your characteristics and not by the color of your skin?
Yeah.
It's a situation, Archita, pretty much from the very beginning. It's the only situation that we knew, especially in those early days of immigrants coming to Canada. And so it sets you up for that to be normative, but it also, in a lot of ways, wasn't an issue because that was the way it was. I know this will sound weird to people, but I really want them to think about it. Like, I'm not looking at me. I'm looking at everybody else. So I don't know that I stick out.
I think that's such an interesting point.
Yes.
It's something that other people don't get. And I think a lot of times when you are asked or they're like, well, how was it for you? Well, it wasn't anything for me because I don't see from outside of myself. I see from inside of myself. And I'm just in the room with everybody else. And I used to wonder how my calculus teacher would know I wasn't in the class. Like he's got 70 other students. But then I was like, oh, that's how he knows, right? Because I'm easy to detect in the sea of students.
Sameness,
so
yes.
yeah, I think that's something that we don't think about, that from the other person's perspective. They're not going through that. They're not going through the feeling like I'm different in the room because they can't see themselves. Like nowadays, especially back then, we didn't have like when we're talking on Zoom and everything. I was actually coming to school as a human being, learning as a human being. For any of us who have immigrant parents or parents who are Black as well, producing and performing as a human being. Those were the goals. Get your degree. Like my sisters and I, my mother would have us raise, who is going to university? I knew the word university in preschool. And at kindergarten, I already knew I was going. And we would raise our hand, like I solemnly swear, like the commitment was already there that we were going to university. So those were the things that concerned me. And I think growing up in that way really fortified my point of view and way of being in any space because I was coming into the space as a human.
It's an interesting point you're making, Delia, and I resonate so much with everything that you're saying. I am also an immigrant. My family's coming from Jamaica. Same situation. It was either doctor, lawyer, or engineer. Anything else was a disappointment, right? So I'm tracking literally with everything that you're saying. And I think it is interesting when I think of my own journey, showing up into spaces, not realizing that I'm different, but then you're quickly reminded that you're different. Right. You may not see it, but the environmental feedback, it's every day. It's constant. And sometimes, this is a little known fact, but sometimes even within the Black community, as immigrants from the Caribbean, it's you're different. So there's still a little bit of that you're different within that community. Even though it wasn't maybe necessarily at the forefront of your mind that you were showing up differently, how did you navigate for women that are minorities that are coming up the ranks today and they're sitting in the same spot and they're an only, but they're hyper aware of it because their environment has made them hyper aware of it? What suggestions would you give them as they look to tackle this constant reminder?
So I want to do a couple of things. So I think this is such an interesting podcast. First of all, I had a mentee. His dad, I think, was the president or prime minister of Botswana when I was in Virginia Tech. And she was given to me, obviously, through the Black Student Association to be her mentee. And she said something which I don't think many people are aware of who grow up in the United States. Remember, I grew up in Canada. She said to me, is it like this every day that you are reminded that you are Black every day? So I want to talk about that tension because it's really important. People who are of color, even in this picture that you guys have seen where I grow up in this situation where clearly there are no other students who look like me, we don't have the narrative of being non-white in our heads drilled down as it is in the American narrative. So I'm glad that you brought that up, Olivia, because it is a uniquely American thing. And I know it is uniquely American because I have menteed more than that particular undergraduate student, many, and everyone says the same thing. I didn't know I was Black, mixed race, Indian, Portuguese, Dominican, whatever I was until I got to the United States. And I would say that's the same thing that happened to me. I came in my 20s. That was really the first time where it becomes a constant part of the narrative. So I want to make sure that distinction is there, that people could be growing up in other places without this overhead burden difference in terms of specifically race showing up. Gender as well is more emphasized in the US than in other places. Not to say that we didn't have any of these discussions in Canada, we did, but not at the level. And I want to acknowledge this because I know one of the things that I decided when I came as a graduate student is I don't think people applaud Americans of color enough for how they are able to withstand this mental barrage of constantly being reminded of difference. And even the most well-meaning things, like creating a society so that you can be with others like you because you are different, is still a reminder that you are different. So it is all around you. In terms of navigating and negotiating that specifically, I think one of the huge things that has helped me is having a stand for who I am. And I wanted to bring up my earlier upbringing because I think that really did create that ability to have a stand for who I am. Like, I know I am Delia Grenville. I know I'm the daughter of immigrants. I know that my rules are Guyanese fundamentally. I know that I was going to university at 5 years old. I know all of those things. That's my stand for myself. And I bring that into every room with me. I bring the fact that my parents left in their 20s, their own family. Back then, the mail used to take 6 weeks to get a response. It wasn't like you just text and sent a picture of the baby. They did all of these things for me to be who I am. I know what has gone on with Black Nova Scotians trying to find a place, and also Caribbean immigrants trying to integrate into Toronto. I have all of that with me. So every room that I go in, I have that with me. I don't go in as Delia Grenville. And I know I don't go in as Delia Grenville because I know that the other side sees me as whatever all the attachments you want to say to are my identity. That's how I'm seen first. It might be two-dimensional. It might be one-dimensional for how they see me, but it's actually multi-dimensional for how I see me because I have to stand all of those people behind me. And when things are going tough, I don't forget that. I remember that I am the daughter of Hyacinth Grenville and Nelson Grenville, and they wouldn't put up with this. So whether or not Delia wants to put up with it, she needs to take a stand for those people who made the sacrifice for her.
I love that response. And I think it's so applicable to even as you coach women these days, at least speaking for myself. I think one of the fundamental points that I make to anyone that I coach is you have to be so comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
Right. And it's such an interesting point that obviously grew up in Jamaica, then migrated to the US. So the only perspective I really have is between those two places. It's a very interesting point to get an outsider perspective on what's going on here and maybe the things that we have to safeguard against. But I think that fundamental point of being so comfortable in your internal values and standing 10 toes down on your ancestry and knowing what you'll tolerate, what you won't tolerate is such an empowering place to start from. Because if you start from there, then no matter what room you walk into, nobody can tell you who you are. You know exactly who you are. So in spite of what Archita and I call the noise happening around you, you're not absorbing that feedback because you know exactly who you are as you maneuver through those spaces. I think that's such great advice.
Yeah, gosh. And I just love how you broke all of that down because it's interesting because I think in any part of the world, any colonized part of the world, you are made to feel different constantly, anywhere you go. In the colonizers part of the world, not the colonized, but the colonizers part of the world, because it's true here. Like you were out in this part of the world too, right, Delia, at some point, if I remember, in Germany. And I see this we have neighbors downstairs, Portuguese of African ancestry, like 3 generations down, refuse to rent a place because he shows up and they're like, oh, you're Pedro. It's just this constant nonsense. And it's this bias, right? Where I was 7.5 months pregnant, did not go to see the house we were going to buy here in Germany with my 3rd child. And then my husband has been dealing with all of this, a white man. And then I go just to check everything out. Last thing, sign the notary. And then the woman's like, oh, Frau Fritz. And I'm like, yeah, Frau Fritz. And she's like, okay. And I come around, don't think anything. Because again, I don't think anything because I feel like safe in this space, right? And then they suddenly ghost us. They ghost the bank. for weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the bank's like never seen this before. They're like, what the heck? The notary appointment is next week. What is going on? And then they call and they're like, oh, the owners thought that you are not the right family for this neighborhood. And this is the crazy part, right? They decided that they will go with a gay couple. So yeah, we wish you well. So I'm like, oh, you're not homophobic, but you are a bigot? Like, or you're racist? I don't understand what you're trying to tell me, dude. What the heck? It was such, and it was like, when you're so late in your pregnancy, you're just like, screw it all. Like, forget it. I'm not going to find a home in this place. Just get me the hell out of here. That didn't happen. I'm still here. But so this bias exists everywhere. And you've led like really large teams, Delia, in large corporate spaces with very diverse employee bases. But this bias sometimes isn't always overt. It's those micro decisions, those unspoken exclusions. And so we've spoken a lot about this in our Speak Out Revolution conversations. But for our audience on Embracing Only, I really want you to help us break down what is some of that most insidious form of bias that can eat away at you when you are in these spaces. And how do you stay true? Because we could say stay true to your values, stay true to who you are. But this stuff like eats away at you and you've got to find a way to neutralize this. How have you been able to navigate that?
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Cream. If you are a corporate girly and you are struggling, you're feeling stuck, maybe you're feeling underpaid, overqualified, you're struggling with your boss, or bigger yet, you're even trying to clearly articulate what it is that you want from your corporate career, I am the coach for you. So if you're ambitious and you've got goals to accomplish and you want to accomplish them quickly, check out my website, oliviacream.com. I would love to help you reach your goals.
Hi, everybody. I'm Archita Fritz, your other host of the Embracing Only podcast. If you're ready to leave corporate or you've changed a couple of corporate jobs and want to start a profitable side brilliance, you've made the decision, but you feel unsure of the next steps, here's how I can help you. I can guide you through a successful transition to entrepreneurship to help turn those ideas into profit. So reach out to me on LinkedIn or visit me on architafritz.com to accelerate your empowered transitions. Now, back to the episode.
I have heard a lot of stories in the car when my mom actually was an executive. So driving back and forth, and my dad would drive and she would talk. And of course, when you're little and you're hearing those stories, you don't know about gender bias. You don't know why she's not getting the promotion. You don't know why she's so frustrated, even though it was such a big deal for her as a Black woman and immigrant to have such a team because she was my mom, right? She wasn't all the things that other people might say, but you also saw how much she had to fight for her career and how, just how so many times she wouldn't understand why things couldn't progress or why she had been skipped over or why she has to make a compromise and let somebody else have a win instead of her and all of those kinds of things. So I had the good fortune of having that as the commute conversation and knowing also that maybe my parents knew about race, but it wasn't always talked about in the context of those conversations. Maybe my mom and my dad expected the world to be fair, right? Ultimately, it was a meritocracy and that your good work should show up there. And we know that there's also bias as well, right? And so you can work as hard as you can work and you won't get what you need. So then it's got to be a matter of how are you going to internalize this? Are you going to allow this to destroy you? Or are you going to allow it to distract you? Or are you going to find another path? And I think a lot of times as women and immigrants or just people in general, because I've seen this happen to men, we stay too long in the space trying to fix it, trying to neutralize it. And really, we need to go to Sister Maya Angelou. When you see it the first time, believe it when you see it the first time. Don't try to massage it into something else. And I think a lot of times we don't. And even if it even if we recognize it, we try to dismiss the bias as something else. I would like to tell women, especially, to stop eating themselves alive. Artita, you mentioned, I think earlier and probably before we recorded, issues of neurodivergence. I'm going to raise my hand. Definitely. I don't know. I've never been diagnosed, but my son is, and now they know these things are genetic. So he didn't get it from his imagination. It came from somewhere. And so I'm just going to assume that I have ADHD. And so one of the things about ADHD is you are, what do they call it? Very sensitive to criticism because you usually were hyper criticized as a child. So because you just your brain didn't work like everybody else's in terms of whatever rules needs to be followed. And so I think we have that sort of sensitivity dysphoria within us as well as women. And I want to bring that up because I think a lot of women, especially women of color, because the studies, Arjita and Olivia, have only been done recently for big groups of women, like 2002, whereas men, these studies were done in the 1970s. We were misdiagnosed. So we don't know about our attention deficit. We've been hyper-corrected. And then we go into these spaces, like you said, where people are negative to us and we think it's us. Because we have been conditioned, not only by our look and our skin color, but also by potentially just the way our brain functions. Because many women, we're the biggest, largest group of people coming into the awareness of their neurodivergence, that we didn't know that our brain functioned differently. And we have been conditioned to mask and to become amenable to our environment and to people please. So what I want to tell women is don't eat yourself up. Believe what you're seeing in the space. It's probably not you. And don't get distracted around finding another path to get to your dreams. I don't believe that there's any real service to yourself in staying in there and duking it out. Get a coach like Olivia or myself or whoever and start working on a plan for a life that's made for you because life is short. Now, maybe I wouldn't have said this 20 years ago as a mom of 2 kids, but as I mentioned, I have a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old. Yeah. And a person who was also completely bought into the ladder of succession. If I get a bigger team, if I do more work, if I do more things, if I am more this, then I'll get to the place, right? Now I'm like, no, you don't. Listen. Get out and you have a better chance. I would tell any woman or anyone in a tough situation, you have a better chance at creating the reality you want in a space that sees the dream and you the way you see it.
Gosh, it's beautiful. Can I just address one thing, Olivia, and then I'm going to put it back to you here, is this sensitivity dysphoria. Really, everybody look this up. It's so important, especially if you're like diagnosed or self-diagnosed, whatever it is. But I actually found an article and I shared this with my husband recently because I would keep wondering, why would I just get so irritated with him at the smallest damn thing? Just like extreme, like absolute extreme. And I never understood it. And then I started Googling and of course, Dr. Google. And I listened to a podcast, actually. It was a ADHD, like mom podcast or whatever. And this woman spoke about sensitivity dysphoria that women have around being overly sensitive to criticism. And it goes back, I'm thinking, to my entire journey as a professional, where my first manager actually told me the thing we have to work with you on is how you react when you are criticized. And I didn't understand it at that time because I'm like, I was criticized. How do you want me to react? Like, just chill? I don't know. I was 18, mind you. It's taken me so long to finally connect the dots. Go look it up. I know that Olivia and I will both shout from the mountaintops. Don't be in spaces that don't see your brilliance and don't serve you. But Olivia, you were going to share something and people just continue to stay there. Duke it out.
Rejection sensitivity disorder. That's RSD.
That's it.
Dysphoria.
Delia, I'm going to have to go look that up because I think you're hitting on something that's so important because I think there are so many of us it hurts so much. And then over the years, you've been told like, it's you, relax, like you shouldn't be so upset about this. And then you develop these really bad coping mechanisms, right? To dealing, the rejection issues are still there. We've just learned to mask it in very unhealthy ways, right? So I think this is good awareness for all the ladies listening, and even the fellas too, if you're listening. If this resonates with you, there's nothing wrong with you. It's a real thing. Right? Bless you, Archita. But I think the question then is, now what? So if you're facing this rejection every day, and why I was itching over here to jump in is, Delia, you dropped so many gems in those comments. One, we have heard from so many guests, you guys, so many guests, that these toxic workplaces will eat you alive. And it's one drop at a time. It just chips away at your soul. Right? So if you're in the middle of your career and you're thinking, we're going to tough it out, we're going to outlast the bullies, there's no quitting us, please stop. Please stop. Quitting is not a bad thing. Okay. If the environment is sucking your soul, like if you are literally dying a little bit every day inside, remove yourself immediately. Go find another path. And I wanted to lean into something, Delia, that we've been talking about lately, this concept of leaning more into what you do with ease, right? And that applies to our environments as well. If you are out there and you're a single mom and you got kids or you've got some extreme life circumstance that making a change scares you, we're not saying be reckless. We're not saying quit your job today, drop everything, get out of there. That is not what we're saying. But what we're saying is acknowledge your environment. For my military folks out there, survey your battlefield, acknowledge the state of your battlefield, decide you need to remove yourself, and then take intentional steps to do so you see your way out without blowing up your life.
We've heard this before, but literally this week, I spoke to someone who's been listening to our podcast, someone I went to school with in India who runs a huge team in Canada, actually. And she's going to listen to it. I'm not going to say her name, but we both love to hear when people listen to our podcast. And I'm sure, Delia, you feel the same when you meet somebody and like, oh my God, you've been following our podcast. Thank you. So she said that we wanted to play your episodes. So they're sending out our episodes every day this week to their teams, Olivia. And this is a really large tech company, like think tens of thousands of employees, okay, in Canada. But she told me this. She's like, Archita, I'm not ready yet to talk about leaving corporate. I'm just so far away from it. And I get it because we were all there. Olivia, you were literally there a hot second ago, right? Like I was there 2 years ago. I get it. I think we're not here trying to convert people to be like, get out of this, because there are amazing spaces that you can thrive and do phenomenal things in. But when you start recognizing that this is eating away in the values of to the values that you spoke about, Delia, and like who you are and what you have identified very clearly of who you are, and people consistently are chipping away at it. It is a conversation you need to start having with yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I would pile on and say this. I'm not trying to talk anybody into these entrepreneurial streets because it is hard out.
It's hard.
Okay. All right. It's hard. It's hard. Okay. If you are not ready, if that mission in your heart isn't burning so bright that you're like, oh my God, I have to go chase this and do nothing else, you are not ready because it takes some grit. Like the hill is no easier to climb out in these entrepreneurial streets. No. Okay. However, what I'm saying is, corporate doesn't mean that you're loyal to a single company because they did whatever for you up until this point. I'll give you a prime example. I had a gal that I coached. She was an associate manager in marketing. And when I tell you this woman, this beautiful Black woman, she was brilliant. She was operating at 3 levels above her pay grade. And she kept bumping her head up in this company into this invisible ceiling. We had all these strategy sessions about go ask your boss this, clarify your role, get your competency matrix clear, make sure you're working on the right things that are going to move the needle to get you to the next level. Nothing. Familiar story, right? You watch the majority male Yahoo get promoted around you, even though they're a 10th as qualified as you are, even though they've done a 10th of the work that you have, even though they show up with the 10th of the executive presence of the this, of the that, and you watch them go around you, girl, ladies, the universe is signaling to you to remove yourself from that space. And I'm not even going to say remove yourself from that space and don't be loyal. It is signaling to you that you are misaligned in your mission. Okay, you're misaligned. The space is misaligned for your ability to grow. So go find a new space. There's infinite opportunities in corporate. This is not us convincing you to join the entrepreneurial world, even though we would love to see more of you free yourselves. There are tons of companies willing to hire you. So the same gal shifted companies. Would you believe she's a VP now?
Yes,
She
I
went
love to hear
from-
those stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
Literally in 18 months, ladies. I
Awesome.
cannot make this stuff up. She went from entry-level marketer to VP of marketing, almost quadrupled her earnings.
Yes.
When I
Wow.
tell you we had a celebration when she called me and told me, but that's what we mean by misalignment and realigning to a place that's going to let you be the asset that you are.
Yeah, I think you hit on so many points. Both of you, I was taking notes because, first of all, you said this person was performing higher than the level that they were at. That's typical. Finding yourself training your boss when they come in after you is also a story my mother used to talk about, that she is definitely going to leave the company because that's just insulting. It still happens and it's still very insulting, but it goes back to what Archita was talking around colonizing spaces. For colonization to work, you have to convince the other people that there was something wrong. I mean, they were broken before you came.
Yeah.
And generally that is not true. They might not be living the life that you expected or standards that you have seen, but doesn't mean that your standards that you're bringing in as the colonizer are any more just or right than theirs. And I think that often that mentality, that colonizing mentality, which actually just spurns from patriarchy, is so embedded in us that, first of all, we have to question if this really rude thing that's happening is actually happening. When people ask us to remove ourselves from it, I mean, part of the narrative is you can get better, or just fight it out or whatever, as Olivia was saying. But you've got to realize that is also part of the narrative. So you have to be onto yourself in that moment and ask, am I staying just to stay, or am I staying because staying is a story that I've heard? And you need to hear more stories like the one that Olivia just told. The person left, and it turns out they weren't broken. They were perfectly fine. They were just at the right. And the feedback from the manager was probably right. If they got that feedback, they were at the wrong grade level. But it wasn't 3 levels down. It was 3 levels up.
Yes.
Yes.
Oftentimes, they might not even know that. So I'm not even going to say that the manager is purposely gaslighting you, because you're able to do more, because you're bringing different questions to the forefront that give people discomfort, that you're solving the problems so quickly that all of these things are happening. They're like, well, you don't fit in. Remember when you did this? One of these things is not like the other, but they don't think, because it belongs 3 levels up, right? They just think we need to keep hammering it, get that square peg in the round hole. So
Yes, it actually ties. I know we mentioned this, but it's important. This rejection sensitivity dysphoria, because one of the things that happens when we have this is we've got to catch our stories. So this is that quote unquote gaslighting that's naturally happening that we are creating to ourselves, right? Our minds all tell stories. We tell stories of situations that have happened, especially when we're rejected, that leads to like rumination, self-blame, and it really intensifies that emotional response, because you're just like, it's me, this person keeps telling me it's me. And one of the ways they tell you to interrupt that pattern is to try to catch the story. Your mind is telling you by noticing when you're caught up in it. So literally asking yourself, are these actual facts? Or is this a story I'm telling myself as a response to someone reacting, responding, rejecting me for something that we're going through?
exactly. And you're right about the RSD makes it worse, because I just reading about this recently as well and finding out like it was true for me. Like if my boss put a note on, if my boss just texted me, call me, I'm like, I'm being fired today. I must have done something wrong, whatever. So when you are, in that state, due to neurodivergence. And I'm going to say that probably, I'm just not going to give any numbers, but whatever the distribution is of neurodivergence in men, I'm just going to guess that it is 1.5 to twice higher in women statistically. We just don't know that. And we've just been so conditioned, and our neurodivergence, and I hate this word, but I'm going to use it, has been weaponized against us in the fabric of society, that we think these things are normal. So if someone calls us out, I'm wrong, I must have done something, whatever, we're already like on the bandwagon, all 7 voices in our heads. No, we are not schizophrenic, just beating us up, like all the voices of authority, right? And so when they say something's wrong, we don't stop to think, maybe the system is wrong. I'm not wrong. I just need to move myself into a situation where I could be considered right, whether that is in another organization or enterprise, whether that's in your own business, whatever it may be. I need to move myself to somewhere that I feel right. And I know in this podcast, I think that would be my biggest theme in my decades of living and working, is starting to understand the way that you embrace only is to understand that you are completely right, perfect, just, beautiful, everything as you are, right? And so these situations come up to test your stand on that you actually believe that. And so rather than doing the narrative of beating yourself up, oh, this happened, I should have known, and blah, 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 take it as this is an opportunity to test my stand for my rightness, for my ability to embrace who I am. It could be that we need to make an apology because we didn't see something the way it was. We needed to be. It was maybe not and we need to learn and grow. It could be that we can make the apology, but we're still in the wrong place and doing the wrong thing for us. It could be the other person needs to change or whatever that is. Take it from the stance that you as yourself are perfectly whole, created just to be who you are. Oftentimes I used to tell my interns in tech, we'd have summer interns and they were like, this would be so hard. I don't know how I'm going to do this. My boss is minimalizing me. They're not giving me the work I want and whatever. And I would tell them, listen, you could freak out as much as you want, but I'm going to tell you what your job is as a summer intern here in this corporation where we have so many people, that few people who look like us. You know what your job is to make it through the internship. That's it. You don't even have to lift your pen.
Yeah.
We just need 3 yards of a person who looks like you in this place, because 3 years from now, that will have multiplied by 3. And that is what you're doing. You are holding the space so that somebody else can get an opportunity. That's your whole job. So many of them would come to me and say, thank you for telling me that. I go, there's no other pressure than that. Just to be in the space. As you guys would say, embrace being the only. That's it.
That's a beautiful message. I'm thinking about all the interns running through our business right now, and I'm just like, wow, my mind is a little bit blown. I need a minute to process that. But what a beautiful message, because I think you're absolutely right, especially some spaces that Archita and I have come from. Just your mere presence opens a door and holds the space for people coming behind you. That is the mission, right? Is to take up space. So that space expands through others. What a beautiful message. Wow.
Yeah. It felt like can you imagine? I was an intern. Like, I started my career as an intern, staying with that company for 16 years. If someone had told me, I had to figure out that I'm going to just take my own space, because I had a mom who made sure I took up space everywhere. But it's just I could feel my shoulders like go down. Like, it felt like I could breathe. Like, it's okay. Take up that space. And it's like giving yourself permission to like learn through that taking up of space and not feel the pressure of performing for that space. We talk about this a lot, like performing for love, performing because we've been immigrants, whatever, like conditioned to do that, right? As well, naturally. But this is so beautiful. And I really hope our listeners really take a moment. If you are the first, you are the only. You continue to be the first, you continue to be the only. Recognize that the only thing on your success card, the only thing on your performance objective is, I'm going to hold this space.
That's it. You just have to, I'm not saying take abuse or anything, but all you have to do is get through it. Look, as I would tell many of them, you're studying engineering, you're doing your MBA, you're going to get the degree. We're already smart. The school is taking care of the education. We need to put down job experience. That's all you need to do. Just stay the entire time. That is the entire job. And then, just like kind of Olivia was saying, I check back in with the students during the summer or afterwards, and then they would say, my project went well, or you know what, I didn't focus on that. I found something else to do. And I got recognition from working with this other side team on a side hustle project. But as you said, once we take that pressure off of ourselves and realize that in the multi-generational mission that we're in as women, as people of color, to balance the narrative of patriarchy, sometimes all you are is a soldier, a person in the spot. That is what you got to do. That's your historical contribution to what's coming ahead. And often in an individualistic society like the one we are in right now in the United States, we tend not to think about the collective. And I think that is what people like we are kind of immigrant backgrounds, we bring that collective perspective into the conversation. It's not about you being an intern at Muckety Muck Company. It's about you being an intern at Muckety Muck Company and making it through with the tick mark complete and no blemishes to your name. That's it. This is not where you need to get most of us who grew up as immigrant families, we know when you bring them a 97, they say, what happened to the other 3 points? Yes, my
entire childhood written in one sentence. I care.
You need to shed that in the internship. Honestly, like the pass is just being there. That's it. It's a pass fail.
Yeah. So, Delia, this conversation could literally go on for another 2 hours. I have one last quick question as we're coming to a wrap, though, that I had to get to. So, you designed a strategy, secret sauce that you co-created, which is basically the GOT strategy workshop that's designed to help professionals take control of their careers. There are so many people in our audience right now that are in that awareness that, okay, I need to start steering the ship here. Give us a quick 30-second pitch on the workshop, what it's designed to help professionals do, and how they can get a hold of it.
So I did that workshop and designed it, it's like a couple of decades ago for middle managers, people who were in the junior manager, trying to get to middle manager ranking. And I worked with another facilitator, Trudy Bourgeois, and what we were looking at helping people understand is that you can't get to there with the strategy that you're using right now. Do everything, get the tick boxes, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not grade school. People are not rewarding you on your performance that way. You have to come up with another set of metrics for yourself that are going to get you to your goal. And so we would help them in the workshop getting together those set of metrics so that people could make those changes, similar to the story of what Olivia spoke of. I'm just thinking about some of the early participants in that workshop. One is currently an entrepreneur. One was a lawyer who's moved on to the co-level as general counsel. And these were early thoughts in how do I get to that next level, my ultimate level that I want to get to, without looking for the approval of others, because no one's going to give it to you. We need to have a plan together for that. There's no package workshop. It was a group teach setting, but if anyone's ever interested in that, just let me know, and I'd love to collaborate with them to get more people in the right mindset to help move themselves forward.
Yeah, that mindset piece I think is so important, gang. And all of us have hit it in some shape or fashion, whether it's me, whether it's Archita, whether it's Delia, whether it's any one of our amazing guests. One set of truths is always constant. and that your success starts and ends with you, right? You're one different decision away from changing the narrative in your own story. So don't be afraid to take control. And there's an army of coaches, an army of professionals that are out here willing to go on that journey with you if you just decide that you're ready for the journey, right? So, Delia,
Olivia, I want to say, you don't have to fully decide, even if it's an inkling is probably the way to the decision. I want to let people know that, because sometimes we think it needs to be a big, and it's all, if you start thinking like this resonates with me, maybe I should do something. We as coaches will help you move forward in getting you positioned for the decision. I wanted to say one thing before you close off, if I may, about my podcast. We talked about permission, and that is the theme of my season 2 for my podcast, permission fluidity. I also write for Brains magazine. So if you Google me and Delia Grenville, you'll see permission, fluidity. And episode 8 is really about this idea that a lot of us, Gen Xers, older millennials, etc., we grew up in a way where permission, it was like yes or no, right? And permission needs to be a sliding scale. So I think we touched on this, like all the things that you can free yourself of if you give yourself the permission. So season 2 is all about that. And if people want to tune in, my content is evergreen. And if I'm going to make a little plug as well,
Please.
I found out earlier this week, I haven't broadcasted on social media yet, that my podcast was chosen by the American Writing Awards as one of the finalists. So there's a winner, and congratulations to the winner. But they also highlighted 6 other podcasts, and that includes mine as podcast of the year category for best female hosted podcast.
Stop. That's amazing. That's huge. Congratulations. I love it. Everybody go check it out. We'll have links to your podcast in the show notes. Is there anything else, Delia, like you'd like for people to do? Where can they find you? How can they reach you? How can they work with you? Please also share and plug away.
Sure. My website's my name, deliagrenville.com. You can contact me through the website at any time. I'm on all the socials, LinkedIn, etc. with Delia Grenville. With a name like Delia Grenville, you really don't have to worry if there's anybody else but you. So that's good. My podcast, as I said, is To Live List. I really also want to thank you both for having these conversations. I know I'm just super grateful if interns listen to it. And if your friend listens to it or a large company, call me and let me talk to the interns more. But I'm also glad that it's recorded somewhere, right? All of the interns, and it doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man or a person of color or whatever, you're young. We're asking you to hold the space, because it also means for the pipeline, for the industry, for all of those things. And I think the more that we have these conversations, Archita, and empower people to know what is coming next, then I think that Olivia was talking about this. People will recognize their own strengths, and they will recognize that they can create better spaces for themselves. And what I'm hoping is that we lose some of this language about corporate. Look, all spaces are human spaces. And there's no reason when we're together there in that collective that it couldn't be the best experience for you. Why not? I want that for my clients. I want them to have the best experience wherever they are. So this awareness of conversations that you guys are having, I think, can really change the world for the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas that are coming up to have better workplaces. And I really would love that.
And I love that, Delia. Thank you for sharing that. Of course, this is a passion for Archita and I, having gone through some interesting spaces ourselves. So we appreciate the recognition. And thank you for sharing your accomplishments and where people can find you. You're an absolute gem and such an asset for all. So please, we always encourage you guys, if something struck a chord here today, reach out to Delia, connect with her, listen to her podcast, see if she's the right coach for you. And as always, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.